Seeking Philin to have a word with him, Leela found him at the practice room. He seemed to have just finished a sparring session and was about to head out when she arrived. But as soon as she started to discuss the issues that Baron Wizard disclosed to her, Philin gravely gave her an ultimatum to stop meddling with the affairs of the duchy, callously reiterating that she's not a Williot. He considers her actions as outright belittling him, that if she continues with what she's doing, he won't forgive her. Deciding to stay inside her room, Leela heard the grave news from her maid. Due to the recent events of the flood, people praised the way she acted on the problem and were wishing that she's the lord of the duchy instead of Philin. Sadly, the dim-witted young duke believed that it was Leela who was spreading such rumors, losing his trust in her. She wondered, as she stared at the gloomy skies, why is he still expediting the marriage preparations? If that were the case, she opted to put aside all her worries considering his current attitude. The imperial qualifying examination is coming. She needs to prepare for her departure to the capital and condition her mind. However, as if fate must be playing tricks on her, no carriage was available on the day of her departure. It takes days to reach the capital. Spending another day at the duchy to wait for a carriage would mean that she'll surely miss the exam. The last carriage was being used by Philin and Sisley. According to the footman on duty, Philin decided to bring Sisley on an outing to relieve her of the stress she accumulated when the mansion was filled with evacuees. The day of the examination came. The Emperor was in the fullest of moods and Beer was taking the full brunt of it. As he reported the number of participants, the scowl on the Emperor's face got worse. Lady Leela Thebessa hasn't arrived yet, and there's barely 30 minutes left before the exam starts. Still not believing that Leela would miss the exam, the Emperor decided to facilitate it himself. Upon his arrival, his mood worsened when he saw that the examinees were all men. Just as the exam was about to start, the door opened, revealing a sweating and short of breath Lady Leela Thebessa, announcing her arrival herself. She approached Beer to ask if she's already late. The red-headed aide assured her that she's not. The exam hall went abuzz with whispers from the men, obviously ridiculing the newcomer. Seeing the open discrimination, the Emperor angrily pounded his fist on a table and ordered silence, marking the start of the exam. When the exam results came, the Emperor had no doubts that Leela will pass. What surprised him was she ended up as the top one. Even the scholars who reviewed her exam gushed with excitement upon seeing such a gifted examinee. Some of them were begging Beer to give Leela to their department. The Emperor summoned Leela to inform her of the news. Seeing she was ecstatic, the Emperor instantly offered her a position as his aide. Though she really likes to accept the position immediately, she respectfully declined. She needs to go back to the duchy to ask for Philin's permission, even when the Emperor advised her to decide for herself, and reminded her that her fiancé recently acted on things without considering her feelings. She still chose to go home. Upon arrival at the duchy, Leela was welcomed by the servants. They expressed their happiness with her achievement. However, Philin was different. He congratulated her, but his voice was reeking with resentment and mockery. His disrespect of her abilities was too much that she spat right back at him. For the times he ignored her feelings when he brought in a woman he impregnated, Philin, enraged that she won't yield to his will, that she should forget about being the Emperor's aide, told her to leave the duchy. The servants panicked. A maid hurriedly advised Leela, in hushed tones, to apologize to Philin and admit she's wrong, but Leela had enough of his stupidity and callousness. Instead of apologizing, she announced the dissolution of their engagement. In her chambers, as Leela was preparing her departure, her maid Sarah is currently sorting her things. Much to the surprise of the maid, Leela instructed her to throw all her fancy things, including the heirloom hairpin that the late Duchess gave her. Seeing as her mistress have no plans of ever coming back, Sarah declared that she's coming with Leela. As expected, Leela declined. She can't actually afford a professional maid once she left the duchy. She'll start her life from scratch. However, the maid was relentless. She has no choice but to accept her sincerity. Watching from the window of his room, Philin saw Leela's things being brought out from the mansion. His butler informed him that Leela is throwing it all away. Contrary to Leela's decision, he told the butler to have all her things in storage, still believing that Leela would change her mind and come begging him to take her back. The servants are already feeling down with the separation, except the old butler. He is still hoping they'll get back together. He strongly believes that it is only their lady who is worthy of their master. Sisley, who saw the commotion outside, heard the butler, and brazenly approached a busy crowd. She got all thorny and barefacedly lashed out at a younger servant when she was addressed as little lady, claiming that she should be addressed as lady of the house since Leela is already leaving. Shamelessly, she rummaged through Leela's things that lay around waiting for storage, 2 contrasting bottles. The ones the Countess de Bessa gave Leela previously caught her fancy without showing any kind of restraint. She kept them for herself, believing that they were worth a lot of money. Meanwhile, a busy morning at the palace, the emperor was surprised to hear that Lady Leela Thebessa is seeking an immediate audience with him. Granting the sudden request, the emperor anxiously awaited her entrance. He gave her 3 weeks to think things over. It's only been less than 2 weeks since he last saw her. He wondered if her haste was because she decided to reject his offer. Contrary to his fears, Leela accepted the position of becoming his aide. Filled with joy though he was, it puzzled him to discover that she was staying at an inn. She seemed so unwilling to discuss her plight, that without prodding deeper in what she let slip, he instructed Baron Delrent to find appropriate quarters for the lady. He also discreetly ordered him to investigate the current relationship status between Lady Thebessa and Duke Williot. She was hesitant to accept his offer in finding her a residence at first, but she relented when the emperor explained that it is part of her role to keep up appearances, including the quality of the residence she is currently staying at. At the duchy, Philin is conducting a meeting with the nobles within their territory. Even if Leela isn't around anymore, her name still comes up. The noblemen were impressed by her foresight, dealing with calamities that often hit their territories. One of the nobles raised an issue. They needed to hire a wizard. Situation of the duchy's territory became dire after Philin's management, when he cut the budget for maintenance in half. Food supply is short. There's no way that the crops would thrive without the help of magic. Seeing that the Duke was hesitating, one of the participants of the meeting started to offer monetary aid, if money is an issue. Much to their disappointment, it was Sisley whom the Duke is thinking of. He is hesitating to hire wizards into the manor, or even let them inside the territory, because Sisley specifically told him not to, since she's afraid of them, using the excuse that she was possessed by bad magic conjured by a wizard during the fall of their kingdom. Contrary to the heavy atmosphere at the duchy, Leela's life as the emperor's aide is off to a good start. At least at the moment, that is. Baron Delrand escorted her to her new residence near the palace. Handing her the key, he reminded her that it's an exclusive single copy. If she lost it, they will have to replace the whole heavy double doors of the residence. As they went it, Baron Delrand offered to help her move her things. After he explained that decorations for the interiors are almost finished, Leela politely declined his offer, explaining that she has a maid, and that her things aren't that many to begin with. Relieved to have lesser extra things to do, the redhead baron said his farewells. As he was departing, he reminded her that she is to report to the palace after a week's time. However, a week is too long for Leela. Even when she started embroidering a handkerchief, once again, her body seems to miss working non-stop. What triggered her handmade project was her maid's answer when she asked what kind of gift is best to give to someone, if you plan to convey the sincerity of your heart. The maid suggested an embroidered handkerchief. Remembering that the emperor is currently keeping the handkerchief meant for Philin, she decided it's about time she made an exclusive item for him. It will be her way of thanking him for everything he's done for her. But try as she might, embroidery isn't enough to keep her occupied. She itched to work and be even more productive. Not wasting any time at the manor, she decided to visit the palace and see if there's anything she can do to help Baron Delrand. He's been working non-stop by himself ever since the new emperor was throned. That day, She woke up early, just like she usually does at the Williots, to aid the late Duke and Duchess so she can pay attention to her embroidery before heading out. Arriving at the palace, it seems she came a little too early. The Emperor is yet to arrive. She was led to stay at the receiving area to wait for an audience with him. Left alone, she reminisced the times when she woke up too early at the duchy. The servants would scold her for not having a complete rest, despite the fact that she stayed up late the previous night, but they will always make sure she's served with warm tea before starting her day. She must have been missing them unconsciously, since she never got to say a proper goodbye to the servants. Because she started to tear up, someone gently held her shoulders and offered a handkerchief. It was the Emperor. Without asking about her plight, he looked at her kindly. As he apologized for the delay, he also told her that she needs to wait some more, because he is attending to some urgent matters. Left alone once more, she wondered what the kind gaze he gave her meant. Why was she so comforted with a mere handkerchief? When the Emperor came back to join her for a cup of tea, he joked about her inability to look at him, that the teacup must be better looking than he is. Out of embarrassment, she hurriedly told him that he is good looking enough, much to the Emperor's surprise and amusement. She was invited for breakfast, which they shared with the other aide, Baron Beard Delrand. With an ambience a stark contrast with what they have at the duchy, it was light, informal, and enjoyable. Compared to the light air they shared over breakfast, Cicely was doing some sneaky dealings by the secluded part of the duchy's mansion, or so she assumed that the bottles she sequestered from Leela's things were worth anything. It wasn't worth as she assumed, but upon knowing its contents, Cicely was able to come up with a dirty plan, which aims to erase any lingering feeling Philin may have for Leela. At the royal palace, after breakfast with the Emperor, Baron Beard Derland was giving her a tour of the aide's office. As they tread the vast halls of the royal palace, Baron Delrand explained that their office is located just beside the Emperor's. After briefing her of work schedule and making sure she's comfortable, Baron Delrand gave her first task. He gave her what seemed endless stacks of documents. He instructed her to arrange them in chronological order, then organize it by region and then by case. She was also requested to check the documents for any missing seal of approval. For some reason, Baron Delrand made a specific emphasis on not letting her go to the outer palace to get the seal. She's just to compile the documents and hand it to him, making sure that she's got the gist of everything for her first day at work. Baron Elrond went out. What Leela doesn't know was bad rumors had been spreading about her appointment, that she is having an illicit relationship with the Emperor. Amidst the unsavory rumors, one name seems to be the stronghold of the nobles, someone whom the other noblemen confide with when they have some issues with the Emperor's actions. It was none other than Duke Gilton. Said Duke was listening to the complaints of the nobles, but he was not going to act on it. At least not yet. On a day when Leela was caught doing work way past office hours, the Emperor scolded her for neglecting her health. He was stern but was not callous. He reminded her that a female's stamina is naturally lesser than a male. It is important to take care of her health if she wants to keep on working without any problem. As she took it all in, the Emperor noticed a slight air of indifference from her, as if a thin wall suddenly emerged between them. Unlike the time they were together at the market while they were looking for a specific plant. Thinking that she might be feeling distant because of the way he addresses her, the Emperor asked for Leela's permission to call her by her first name. However, Lord Delrand was against it. If people heard the familiar way the Emperor addresses the aide, who is the center of all the unsavory gossips circulating around the palace, the dirty chin wags of the nobles would skyrocket. As Lord Delrand was giving the Emperor an earful, Hiltine, leader of the Crowd Knights and known as the Emperor's Shadow, went straight in and reported the results of his ongoing investigation. When he left, Lord Delrand asked the Emperor if he was still investigating the incident 10 years ago. The latter gave an affirmative nod. On a day that Leela is to submit her complete report, the Chief Chamberlain was there to greet her. but the way he addressed her made the emperor take offense, making him address Leela as Lord Tebessa, since she passed the qualifying exam as the emperor's aide. When all was said and done, Raphael, the chief chamberlain, was sent back to his post. The emperor scrutinized Leela's report and was fully impressed by it. As a reward for her excellent work, he invited her to a meal, mistaking it for a staff treat. Instead of an exclusive invitation, she mentioned beer, Lord Delrant, and went to fetch him. The emperor noticed that she calls him by his first name, making him feel stuffy in the chest for some reason. Meanwhile, at the Williets duchy, an invitation from a fellow noble of similar rank arrived. Philin, who was swamped with all the duke's work, begrudgingly accepted the invitation and decided to wear his ceremonial clothes. After all, he doesn't really know what kind of clothes to order, since it was Leela who always took care of their outfits. Looking back, Philin realized how hard must have it been for Leela. Aside from managing the mansion, she was swamped with the management of the duchy's affairs, not to mention that she's been taking care of his personal wardrobe. At the palace, over a hearty meal, Beer started to open up work matters, much to the emperor's annoyance. Even when the emperor whined about the work talks and prohibited it, Beer just continued. Over dinner, they solved the issue of giving compensation to the bereaved of the war veterans. But what of the orphans? Beer suggested to give them monetary support. But Leela was worried that it might attract thieves and that people might take advantage of them. They concluded to build an orphanage, and Leela was appointed to take care of the necessary documents to present it to the Council of Nobles. The next day, the busy office of the emperor's aides became even more busy because of the new proposal for an orphanage and the upcoming victory party. Beer whined about the load of work. Leela voiced out that it would be better if they have an empress, since it is the empress who takes care of banquets and parties. Beer suddenly told her that the emperor does not plan to marry anyone, nor is he capable of marrying someone soon. Noticing his slip of the tongue, Beer left the office for an errand. Left alone, Leela can't help but think of the times she spent with the emperor, leading her to shamelessly imagine herself as his empress and fully supporting him in everything. Realizing the absurdity of her daydream, Leela shook her head and went on with writing the documents for the orphanage. At the duchy, amidst the flood of work on his desk, Philin asked his head butler about the preparations of his marriage with Leela. As expected, it is going smoothly, even if their relationship is currently almost non-existent. Still believing that she'll be returning to his side, he told the butler to keep her things as is. When the butler went out, he caught Sisley shamelessly eavesdropping by the slightly open door. She didn't show even a morsel of embarrassment upon seeing the butler, and was close to boasting she eavesdropped when asked if she heard their conversation. Exasperated, as she tread the hall of the duchy's mansion, Sisley was thinking of ways to eradicate Leela's influence on the duchy and on Phylin's life. At the royal palace, Leela was absorbed with looking for reference materials for orphanage structures. The emperor lent a hand and told her there was none, since it was the first time that the kingdom would build one. However, he freely lent his personal documents that he wrote when he was younger and was not the emperor yet. It surprised Leela to find that a small chamber exists in their office. It was where the emperor's personal manuscripts were kept. Entrusted with such an important document, and the task of writing a full proposal, Leela was fired up and determined not to fail the trust the emperor gave her. Going back to her residence, Leela scrutinized the emperor's personal documents while still in the carriage. Noticing the blood smears, she imagined the hardships that His Majesty experienced, growing up in a family that ignored him. Upon doing so, she recalled the bad times she experienced herself in the house of Tebessa as the illegitimate daughter. Feeling a bout of depression coming up, she shook it off and focused on the task that was given to her. Becoming the emperor's aide is top priority, and the childcare center is her first important task. The next day, Beer was frantic as the victory party is getting close. Her proposal was almost finished, and was just needing the supporting documents from the other scholars. Since Beer was busy with other works, she was finally allowed to go out of the outer palace and seek the seal of approval to finalize her document. Left alone in the office, Bir pondered about Leela's difference to other nobles. He was used to being ridiculed by others because of his lowly origins, but the way Leela treated everyone equally, despite their social status, is a breath of fresh air, rather than hating it. He's thankful for it. Realizing that he has been idling, Bir shook his head and went on with his workload. Meanwhile, outside their office, Leela was treading the hall leading to the outer palace. When a group of noble ladies bumped into her, it made her lose her balance. The documents she was holding scattered on the floor. Some even made it near the noble ladies' feet, and they deliberately stepped on it with their shoes. Looking at the culprits, she recognized them as Sophia's acquaintances. The one acting as their leader was a blonde in a red dress named Lisa. Seeing as they have no plans of apologizing, she turned her villainous mode on, and threatened to tell the emperor who ruined the documents he was expecting. Upon the mention of the emperor, the ladies apologized and hurriedly left. Lisa made a cryptic remark about Leela being a fake aide. Wondering what the noble ladies meant by that remark, she watched their receding backs as they walked away. Surprisingly, a helping hand appeared out of nowhere. It was the handsome white-haired knight named Hiltine. The documents were fixed with his help. Leela was able to make it in time, and submitted to the emperor as scheduled. He started to scrutinize her document. It was well written. The only problem left was funding. Leela thought of something and reached out to gently tap him to get his attention, when he suddenly grabbed her hand and noticed how rough it was. She made an excuse as falling by herself. The emperor even noticed the bleeding wound on her knee. That he got worried about her getting the bomb he keeps in his desk. He made her sit by the sofa and started to treat her wound, instructing her to remove her skirt as well. Not having an inkling if the request was malicious or not, Leela started to remove her skirt, albeit showing some shame. The emperor then scolded her for being clueless and defenseless. Not wanting to make the air more awkward as it is, since he is also affected by their close proximity, the emperor left Leela by herself to treat her wounds and went back to his desk. Finishing the application of the medicine on her wounds, she approached the emperor, invading his personal space. The emperor has yet to recover from being affected by their close interaction not too long ago, commented that she's too close, focused on what she wanted to convey. Leela failed to notice what he was saying. She went on and handed him her gift. Then she left in a hurry due to embarrassment. The emperor opened the box tied with blue ribbon. Inside was a carefully embroidered handkerchief with his dragon monogram. Seeing her latest embroidery, he noticed that it was way better than the one she previously made for her fiancé. The next day, with the party getting even nearer, the emperor's office got flooded by letters of invitation, asking to be his partner at the event. Not interested in any of the girls that sent him letters, the emperor ordered the chief chamberlain to reject all invitation. When he started to ask about the events of yesterday, if the chief chamberlain was aware how Lord Thebessa was injured, Hiltine, who appeared out of nowhere, intervened. After the chief chamberlain left, Hiltine gave the details of yesterday's events. Meanwhile, at the library, Leela was once again looking for reference materials and had too many books to carry. Fortunately, Bir came and helped her. On their way back to the office, Leela remembered the fake aid issue and asked Bir about it. Cornered, Bir told her of the rumors that most of the nobles believed that she cheated. Of course, Leela vehemently denied the allegations. Showing his support to Leela, he disclosed that the scholars were impressed by her exam answers and were clamoring for her to be designated in their department. As if sensing her remaining doubts, Bir told her that she's doing her job splendidly. She need not worry about the baseless rumors. Parting ways with her, Bir proceeded to the emperor's office and reported that the rumors finally reached Lord Thebessa's ears. Hearing the news, Bir was instructed to stop the rumors, even though he reminded his liege that it won't halt the gossipers from spreading the unsavory talks. The emperor agreed to Bir, but it was evident by the look in his eyes that he already had plans set in motion to quash the rumors. Setting aside the plans for ending the rumors, Bir presented the dispute between the Khan region of the empire and the Natusa kingdom. Khan has been known as haven for pirates, whilst Natusa houses the navy. Their dispute has been going on for quite some time. But at present, Khan made an outrageous request, seeing the seriousness of the situation. Beer and the emperor got immersed in a meeting that lasted until late at night. Exhausted, the emperor went out to stretch his legs. As he looked out the window while walking the vast halls of the royal palace, he noticed that the light in the aide's office is still lit. It can't be Beer, since they just finished their meeting, so he guessed it was Leela. Wondering what she was working on that she stayed working until late night, made him rush to the office. She was so immersed with what she was writing that he caught a glimpse of the document she was working on, asking her why she's composing a child care guide when the construction of the child care center is yet to be approved. She explained that the church, who is currently raising orphans, may benefit with a guide. Even he was impressed by her work. The emperor once again reminded Leela that staying up late and neglecting her health would be counterproductive. She ended her work and accepted his offer to walk her to her carriage. As they tread the royal palace's hall leading to the front door, the emperor mentioned the handkerchief she gifted him and sincerely thanked her for it. Seeing the blush that creeped up her face, he did not tease her any further. He showed her a list of names and made her choose something she likes best. Not clearly knowing his intentions at that time, she indulged him and seriously looked at the list. Estela, which meant star in the ancient language, was what she chose. The emperor was impressed by knowledge of the ancient language. He agreed that the name fitted her perfectly. When she tried to ask what was it for, all he told her was she'll know soon enough. That same night, Philin attended the party he was invited into. Said party was hosted by Duke Gilton. During dinner, the Duchess and their young son joined them. The kid accidentally dropped his eating utensil, that it made a loud noise. A stern look from the Duke made the Duchess and his son shook in fear. It was Duke William who easily voiced out that he doesn't mind the ruckus.